Hey men, right now a quiet transformation is unfolding, and most people don't even notice it. No politicians are steering it, nor do you see it on the front pages of newspapers. It's not celebrated in mainstream conversations either. Yet it's real, and it's spreading fast. Men from every walk of life are making a conscious choice to step back from women. They do this not out of anger or bitterness, but with awareness. For years men were told the problem was always with them. They were taught to put in more effort, to be more open, to communicate more, to endure more. But what they received in return was less respect, less loyalty, and less appreciation. In the end, something inside a man doesn't break with rage, but with awakening. After giving years of his life, he looks back and sees how little he got in return. Maybe the problem was never that he didn't try hard enough, maybe it was that he invested in a broken system from the very beginning. Society has, for decades, conditioned men to place women at the very center of their lives. Movies, music, advertisements all tied a man's worth to his ability to attract a woman, to satisfy her, and to keep her by his side. But in truth, that belief is nothing more than clinging to a long-dead ideal. Men, chasing a dream that no longer exists, drain themselves in an endless cycle. Modern relationships are no longer about building a family or growing together. Even mutual respect is no longer central. Everything now revolves around keeping options open, seeking validation, and holding leverage. And when a man realizes that from the very start he has been part of a rigged game, there is only one thing left to do: stop playing. He chooses himself, not out of spite, but to protect his own boundaries. The biggest misconception is this: people assume men leave because they cannot handle it or because they fear commitment. But that's the lie society keeps repeating. The truth is far simpler. Men are walking away because they've done the math and realized the return is never worth the cost. They've seen countless friends pour everything into a relationship, only to be cast aside at the first sign of conflict. Stories of men losing their homes, their savings, and their children have spread everywhere. They've seen love reduced to entitlement and trust completely vanish. And so they make the only rational choice: to remove themselves from the equation entirely. When a man pulls back, it's not merely walking away from romance, it is freeing himself from the expectations society forced upon him. It is silencing the noise, reclaiming his worth, and rebuilding his life from the ground up. Because now he knows, the role he was handed was a game he could never win. No matter how much effort, no matter how many sacrifices, he would always be on the losing side. Yet when he walks away, for the first time he truly wins. What he loses is the illusion that drained him, what he gains is peace, time, and freedom. Women often misread this withdrawal. They think it's just anger or a passing grudge. But it's something far deeper: it is a man's way of saying enough. He carries no hatred in his heart, he seeks no revenge. He simply decides to direct his life by his own will. He breaks free from the chains of social expectations and realizes he can live without anyone's approval. And this realization becomes the most powerful liberation a man can ever experience. Society feels threatened by this choice, because it disrupts an order that has been in place for decades. Once a man places himself at the center, he can no longer be controlled. The stories told by ads, shows, and popular culture lose their grip. A man who refuses to play the game becomes the system's greatest fear. That's why this movement is never mentioned, that's why it's quietly ignored. But no matter how much they try to hide it, this awakening reaches more and more men every single day. When a woman finally notices that a man has quietly withdrawn, most of the time it's already too late. Because men don't do this suddenly, it's a choice made after long observation and reflection. When warnings go unheard, when efforts are dismissed, when worth is overlooked, he eventually chooses his own path. And from that moment on, turning back is nearly impossible. Because this decision is not born of anger, but of a deep awakening. Once a man closes the doors of his heart, opening them again is almost impossible. At this point, women often begin to see what they've lost more clearly. They encounter a man who no longer calls, no longer chases, no longer fights for every little detail. And they realize something: the real power was never in the attention or the beauty they thought they held. The true power was always in the man's ability to decide where his time, energy, and focus would go. And once that power is gone, regaining it is not easy. Because once a man remembers his worth, he never returns to giving away pieces of himself so freely. This is why such change is what women fear the most. Because a man's withdrawal doesn't just mean the end of a relationship, it means the end of the game they were used to playing. From that moment, the balance shifts. The man is no longer the one running after. His silence speaks louder than thousands of words. And when women finally realize what they've lost, they learn it in the harshest way possible. In the end, it comes down to this: men are no longer agreeing to the rules of the game. Instead of measuring their worth through outside validation, they define it through inner strength. Instead of seeking happiness in someone else's approval, they find it in their own purpose. And that is what society fears most. Because a man who chooses his own path cannot be easily manipulated, guided, or controlled. This man no longer accepts the roles handed to him, he steps fully into the lead role of his own life. Perhaps the most striking part of men's silence is this: they don't send their message by shouting in rage, but by walking away quietly. That silence becomes the loudest cry in the world. And by the time women recognize it, it's already too late. Because an irreversible decision has been made. Once a man remembers his worth, he never goes back. From that point on, the story changes. It is no longer written by others' expectations, but by his own choices.